The automotive world is in chaos. Toyota and Honda, two of Japan's biggest automakers, just faced a financial hit that could change everything. U.S. tariffs are shaking the very foundation of global car manufacturing. And it's not just affecting companies. It's about to hit your wallet, your choices, and the future of cars as we know them. In a shocking twist, Toyota and Honda are scrambling to adapt, while China and South Korea move to seize the opportunity. European luxury brands are caught off guard, and American automakers are suddenly back in the fight. This is more than just a corporate problem. It's a global economic storm, and the ripple effects could be massive. What does this mean for car prices? Can Japanese automakers survive the fallout? And is this the moment when American manufacturing makes a comeback? Buckle up, because this story is just getting started, and you won't believe how it ends. Toyota's immediate crisis. Absorbing the blow. Toyota, the world's largest automaker, has been blindsided by the sudden imposition of auto tariffs by the United States government. The financial blow is staggering. Costs are estimated to skyrocket by nearly $12 billion annually. For a company that has prided itself on efficient production and cost management, this kind of economic shock was not part of the plan. Yet Toyota is not backing down. Instead, they have made a bold and risky decision to absorb the increased costs rather than pass them directly to consumers or suppliers. It is a move that has stunned both industry insiders and competitors alike. At the heart of Toyota's strategy is the decision to cover the increased costs for their suppliers. The reasoning is straightforward yet controversial. By supporting the supply chain, Toyota hopes to maintain uninterrupted production and avoid disruptions that could cripple their output. Toyota's leadership believes that maintaining a stable network of suppliers is more crucial in the long term than immediate cost-cutting measures. In essence, Toyota is playing the long game, opting for resilience over a knee-jerk reaction. However, this decision is not without significant financial risks. Covering these tariffs means taking a direct hit to profit margins, a blow that could affect Toyota's financial stability for years to come. Industry analysts warn that this approach might work in the short term, but if the tariffs persist or increase, Toyota could face severe cash flow issues. The company's balance sheet, though robust, is not immune to sustained pressure. Absorbing billions in costs could compromise their ability to invest in future technologies or maintain competitive pricing in a market that is already under immense strain. Critics argue that Toyota's decision to shield suppliers might end up hurting the company more than helping. By not immediately passing on costs through higher vehicle prices, Toyota risks a potential revenue shortfall. This situation becomes particularly problematic as competitors, like Ford, are choosing to lower prices to retain market share, even if it means sacrificing short-term profits. Toyota's gamble to keep prices stable could backfire if consumers begin flocking to cheaper alternatives. Its leadership, however, remains steadfast in their strategy. They view the decision to absorb costs as a means to maintain loyalty among their extensive network of suppliers. Unlike some competitors who are seeking immediate cost relief, Toyota believes that supporting their partners will yield long-term benefits, including faster recovery once the tariffs stabilize or are potentially lifted. This loyalty to the supply chain is a cornerstone of Toyota's philosophy, rooted in decades of partnership building within the automotive sector. While Toyota is digging in, Honda's response couldn't be more different. Honda's strategic hesitation to move or not to move. Honda, facing the same tariff crisis as Toyota, has chosen a markedly different approach: caution and reevaluation. Unlike Toyota's proactive stance, Honda is pausing to consider the broader implications before committing to a long-term strategy. This cautious hesitation is rooted in a fundamental question: should they double down on existing U.S. operations or invest in new facilities to sidestep the tariff costs? Unlike Toyota, Honda's production footprint in the United States is less extensive, leaving fewer options to mitigate the cost increases directly. Moving production from overseas to U.S.-based facilities is a costly and complex undertaking, especially without the certainty that the tariffs will remain in place long-term. Honda is weighing the cost of building new plants against the possibility of the tariffs being lifted or reduced in the near future. The automaker has also been vocal about the difficulties of scaling up U.S. production quickly. Building new plants from the ground up is not just financially demanding, but also time-consuming. Even if Honda were to break ground on new facilities immediately, it could take several years before they are fully operational. In the meantime, maintaining a flexible approach seems more prudent than rushing into massive infrastructure investments. Critics of Honda's cautious stance argue that waiting too long to act could leave the company vulnerable if the tariffs persist. Toyota's bold move to cover supplier costs might position it better in the short term, while Honda's indecisiveness could erode its market position. Yet, Honda's executives see it differently. They believe that making a hasty decision now could lock the company into long-term commitments that may become obsolete if the tariff landscape shifts again. The fundamental difference between Toyota and Honda lies in their corporate philosophies. Toyota believes in securing the supply chain at all costs, while Honda sees caution as the wiser path. The ultimate question is whether Honda's strategic patience will be seen as wisdom or weakness once the dust settles. But as Honda weighs its options, global rivals are preparing to hit back. Industry's immediate reactions: adapt or collapse. The tariff crisis has not only blindsided Japanese automakers, but has also sent shockwaves throughout the entire automotive industry. Global manufacturers like Hyundai, Ford, BMW, and Mercedes are scrambling to adapt to the rapidly changing economic landscape. The core of the problem lies in how swiftly the tariffs were enacted, leaving little time for contingency planning. Hyundai and Ford are taking aggressive stances, with Hyundai increasing its U.S. production and Ford cutting prices to maintain consumer interest. BMW and Mercedes, however, are caught in a bind. Their luxury models are predominantly manufactured abroad, making them particularly vulnerable to the new import levies. Moving production to the United States is not just costly, but could dilute the brand's European identity, a risk they are hesitant to take. Early signs of market turbulence are evident, as consumers are already reacting to the anticipated price hikes. Dealerships are reporting a surge in interest in existing inventory, as buyers rush to secure vehicles before prices skyrocket. However, this temporary boost may soon be followed by a slump if manufacturers fail to stabilize their supply chains. We've dug deep into this automotive chaos, connecting the dots between tariffs, corporate strategies, and the surprising moves from industry giants like Toyota and Honda. This story is unfolding fast, and we're keeping up with every twist. And while the auto giants struggle, Detroit is fighting back in its own way. Ford's counterattack: price cuts in the eye of the storm. While other automakers are scrambling to adapt to the new economic landscape, Ford has taken a completely different approach: aggressive price cuts. Instead of raising prices to cover the increased production costs, Ford has decided to lower them. This counterintuitive strategy is designed to capture market share at a time when competitors are forced to hike prices due to tariff-related expenses. By presenting itself as the more affordable choice, Ford aims to build customer loyalty and increase sales volume. However, this bold move is not without its risks. Lowering prices in a time of rising costs could significantly erode profit margins, leaving Ford financially vulnerable if the strategy does not translate into higher sales. The gamble lies in whether consumers will respond positively to the lower prices, or if the economic uncertainty will still deter purchases. Ford's approach challenges the conventional wisdom that price cuts during a cost crisis are too risky. If it works, Ford could emerge as a market leader during a turbulent period. If it fails, however, the company could find itself struggling to recover financially. The long-term effects of this strategy will depend on how other automakers react and whether Ford can sustain its pricing model without compromising quality. But while Ford is playing offense, the real losers are becoming painfully clear. Workers on the line, layoffs begin. When corporate decisions hit the ground, it's the workers who feel the pain first. The announcement of auto tariffs sent shockwaves through the automotive industry, but nowhere did the impact hit harder than on the factory floor. As automakers scramble to adapt, workers are left reeling from the consequences, unsure of their futures. At Stellantis plants across the United States, the grim reality of job cuts is becoming more evident by the day. The company, already struggling with declining sales and profitability, saw no choice but to implement layoffs as tariffs pushed operational costs through the roof. Thousands of workers, many of whom have dedicated decades of their lives to the company, found themselves suddenly unemployed. In places like Michigan and Indiana, where Stellantis operates major facilities, the ripple effect of these layoffs is devastating entire communities. Local businesses that thrive on factory workers, like diners, auto parts stores, and retail shops, are seeing a steep drop in daily customers. The layoffs have created a domino effect that impacts not just the workers, but their families and entire neighborhoods. Unions, traditionally strong advocates for these workers, are mobilizing to fight back. The United Auto Workers Union has publicly condemned the layoffs, arguing that the burden of tariffs should not fall on the backs of hardworking Americans. Union leaders are calling for government intervention, demanding that policymakers reconsider the aggressive tariff strategy that has left workers in limbo. Some unions are pushing for subsidies to help keep workers employed, while others are demanding that automakers reallocate production to U.S. plants rather than cutting jobs outright. For many workers, the sense of betrayal is profound. One assembly line worker, who spent 15 years at a Stellantis plant in Indiana, described the layoff notice as a punch to the gut. "We gave everything to this company," he said, fighting back tears. "And now, just like that, we're out. No warning, no security, just gone." Stories like his are becoming increasingly common as other automakers also hint at potential workforce reductions. Even those still employed worry about how long their jobs will last as the threat of further cuts looms over their heads. Beyond the automakers themselves, parts suppliers are bearing an even heavier burden. These smaller companies, which manufacture everything from brake components to dashboard electronics, are often operating on razor-thin margins. When their primary customers, like Toyota and Honda, announce production slowdowns, these suppliers are left with unsold inventory and no cash flow. Some have already begun shutting down operations, laying off their entire workforce as contracts are canceled. For the automotive supply chain, the current situation is nothing short of catastrophic. As workers brace for the worst, consumers are feeling the shock in a different way. Sticker shock. The price of a new car just exploded. The dream of owning a new car just became a nightmare thanks to skyrocketing prices. As the dust settles from the tariff announcements, one thing is painfully clear: buying a new vehicle just got significantly more expensive. For decades, Japanese automakers like Toyota and Honda have been known for producing affordable, reliable cars that are within reach of the average American family. Now, with tariffs adding a staggering 25% to the cost of imported vehicles, that affordability is fading fast. Toyota, known for its careful financial management, has made the controversial decision to absorb part of the tariff costs rather than passing them entirely to consumers. However, even with Toyota's efforts to soften the blow, prices are still rising. Models that once retailed for around $30,000 are now creeping closer to $40,000. Honda, on the other hand, is taking a different approach by selectively raising prices on some models, while keeping others stable to maintain a competitive edge. But not every automaker is following the same path. Ford, seeing an opportunity to capture market share, has slashed prices on several models. The logic behind this move is clear. By offering lower prices during a time when competitors are forced to raise theirs, Ford hopes to attract budget-conscious buyers who might otherwise turn to Toyota or Honda. However, this strategy is not without risk. Reducing prices during a period of increasing costs could erode Ford's profit margins significantly, leaving the company vulnerable if sales volumes do not rise as expected. Consumers, caught between rising costs and confusing pricing strategies, face a difficult decision. Should they purchase now before prices climb even higher, or wait and risk the possibility of even steeper costs down the line? Some buyers are rushing to dealerships, hoping to lock in deals before the next wave of price hikes. Others are holding out, betting that the market will stabilize once automakers find a way to mitigate the tariff impact. Analysts predict that the current pricing turmoil will not be short-lived. As long as tariffs remain in place, car prices are expected to continue rising. This could push many buyers toward the used car market, where prices are also climbing but remain more manageable than new models. Dealers report that used vehicle demand is already up significantly, with some cars selling for nearly new prices as supply dwindles. The shift from new to used could have long-term effects on automakers' profitability, especially those heavily reliant on new car sales. And just as consumers start to adjust, the financial burden ripples through entire communities. The hidden victims, parts suppliers on the brink. When big automakers sneeze, small suppliers catch a financial cold, one they might not survive. The automotive supply chain is vast and complex, and for many small parts manufacturers, the new tariffs are proving catastrophic. While companies like Toyota and Ford can absorb some of the increased costs or make strategic adjustments, their smaller suppliers lack that flexibility. For these suppliers, even a slight reduction in orders can mean the difference between survival and bankruptcy. Many of these small manufacturers operate on tight budgets with limited savings. They are often family-owned businesses that have been supplying parts for decades. Now, faced with sudden drops in demand and increased production costs, some are being forced to shut down. One supplier in Ohio, which has been producing steering components for over 30 years, recently laid off its entire workforce of 50 employees. The owner admitted that without more more orders coming in. It simply could not keep the lights on. Toyota, recognizing the severity of the situation, has announced plans to financially support some of its key suppliers to help them weather the storm. This move, while admirable, only covers a fraction of the affected businesses. Meanwhile, other automakers have not made similar commitments, leaving many suppliers feeling abandoned. Those without direct support are scrambling to find new clients or cut costs drastically. But for many, it's too little, too late. The loss of suppliers doesn't just impact the companies themselves. As these businesses close, the local economies that depend on them suffer as well. Restaurants, gas stations, and other small businesses that relied on supplier employees for regular patronage are seeing their revenues drop. The cumulative effect is a downward spiral that is hard to reverse. But while suppliers fight to survive, the world is watching and planning its next move. Japan's strategic reassessment, a nation under pressure. When your biggest export market becomes your biggest problem, it's time to rethink your strategy. Japan's automotive industry is facing an unprecedented crisis. The United States, long considered the most lucrative export market for Japanese automakers, has suddenly transformed into a financial quagmire. With the imposition of hefty tariffs, Japanese manufacturers are caught between maintaining their U.S. market share and absorbing crushing costs. The reaction from both the government and automakers has been swift but uncertain, as strategies are rapidly evolving to cope with the new reality. The Japanese government has been vocal in expressing its concerns over the tariffs. Officials have described the move as an economic blow that could jeopardize not just car exports, but the overall trade relationship with the United States. Meetings between government representatives and automotive executives have become routine, as both sides attempt to craft a cohesive response. The pressure is mounting to safeguard one of Japan's most vital export industries, while also maintaining diplomatic ties. Toyota and Honda, two of Japan's automotive giants, are particularly vulnerable. The United States accounts for a substantial portion of their global sales. To minimize the impact, Toyota has committed to absorbing some of the increased costs to protect its American consumer base. Honda, on the other hand, is exploring options to increase domestic production within the United States. Both companies are also considering ramping up production in other markets, such as Southeast Asia, to offset losses. One emerging strategy among Japanese manufacturers is increasing production localization. This approach involves shifting more assembly and component manufacturing to the United States itself, thereby avoiding the tariffs. Nissan has already made strides in this direction, utilizing its U.S. plants to mitigate the impact. However, smaller manufacturers like Subaru face a more significant challenge, as they lack the production capacity abroad to make such a shift feasible. Public sentiment in Japan has turned increasingly critical of U.S. policies. News outlets are filled with stories highlighting the hardships faced by automotive workers and suppliers. There is a growing movement advocating for the government to take a firmer stance against what is perceived as economic bullying. Some voices within Japan's parliament are even calling for retaliatory tariffs or a reduction in car exports to the United States as a way to showcase economic resilience. The long-term outlook remains uncertain. If tariffs persist, Japan might have to rethink its entire export strategy, possibly reducing its dependency on the United States. Automakers could increase their focus on markets like China and Europe, where the trade environment appears more stable. However, this would be a risky move, as the United States has been a cornerstone of Japan's automotive success for decades. While Japan faces this daunting economic challenge, its Asian neighbors are seeing an unexpected opportunity. China and South Korea, unexpected winners. Amid the turmoil caused by U.S. tariffs on Japanese automakers, China and South Korea are seizing the moment to expand their influence in the global automotive market. As Toyota and Honda wrestle with production challenges, companies like BYD and NIO are stepping up to fill the void. These Chinese automakers are leveraging the disruption to strengthen their foothold in the United States, capitalizing on the sudden gap left by their Japanese competitors. BYD has been particularly aggressive, accelerating its plans to expand electric vehicle production within the United States. The company is utilizing existing partnerships with local manufacturers to set up new assembly lines, avoiding the tariff hurdle entirely. NIO, another rising star in the electric vehicle sector, has also announced plans to establish production facilities stateside, making its electric SUVs more accessible to American buyers. By positioning themselves as cheaper and locally produced alternatives, both brands are poised to capture a significant slice of the market. South Korea is also capitalizing on this disruption. Hyundai, with its recent expansion of U.S. production facilities, is well positioned to withstand the tariff storm. By proactively investing in local manufacturing, Hyundai is not just protecting its market share, but actively planning to grow it. The Savannah, Georgia plant, a flagship project for Hyundai, is set to produce a new line of electric vehicles aimed directly at the American market. This strategic move highlights the company's commitment to becoming less dependent on imports. Kia, Hyundai's sibling brand, is also reaping the benefits. The recent partnership with General Motors to co-produce trucks in the United States is a strategic masterstroke. With local production secured, Kia avoids the pitfalls that are currently ensnaring its Japanese rivals. As a result, both Hyundai and Kia are experiencing a surge in consumer confidence and are likely to strengthen their positions as reliable, affordable alternatives. These developments underscore a critical shift in global automotive dynamics. While Japan is focused on damage control, China and South Korea are playing offense. By establishing manufacturing hubs in the United States, they are not only securing their market presence but actively challenging the dominance of traditional automakers. If tariffs persist, the automotive map may see a realignment, with Asian automakers that successfully localize production emerging as the clear winners. But while Asia adapts, Europe is facing a crisis of its own. As Asian automakers find new opportunities, European luxury brands are discovering that their prestige offers no protection from economic reality. Europe's shockwave, luxury brands caught in the crossfire. The tariffs have hit European automakers with unexpected force, especially luxury brands like Mercedes and BMW. These companies, which have long positioned themselves as premium choices, are finding it increasingly difficult to justify their high prices when tariffs inflate costs even further. The question facing these brands is simple but daunting. How can they maintain their luxury appeal while simultaneously cutting production costs? BMW and Mercedes-Benz are particularly vulnerable due to their reliance on importing high-end models from Europe. Unlike mass-market brands that can quickly adjust production locations, luxury automakers face unique challenges. Moving production from Germany to the United States would compromise their brand identity, which is deeply tied to European craftsmanship. Yet, maintaining production in Europe means absorbing significant tariff-related costs, which could erode profitability or force steep price hikes. One potential solution is to expand US-based assembly, but this too has pitfalls. Luxury car buyers expect a level of refinement and quality that German factories have honed over decades. Setting up similar standards in the United States would require significant investment and time. Alternatively, brands like Mercedes might choose to reduce their U.S. presence altogether, focusing on maintaining their high-end reputation in less tariff-affected markets. The dilemma is evident. Either sacrifice some of the brand's premium appeal or risk losing a major market. Some executives have floated the idea of producing more entry-level luxury models locally, while keeping the flagship cars in Europe. However, this strategy could dilute the brand's identity and alienate core customers. As Europe struggles with strategic decisions, American automakers see a rare opportunity to reclaim market dominance. The global automotive landscape is undergoing a seismic transformation. With tariffs reshaping trade and production decisions, automakers are now forced to rethink not just where they build cars, but how they define their brands. The rise of American-made electric vehicles is one unexpected consequence. As local manufacturing becomes more appealing, brands that can quickly adapt to this new reality may emerge as industry leaders, while those slow to adjust could face irrelevance. This is just the beginning of a massive shakeup in the automotive world. Do you think Toyota and Honda can bounce back, or are we witnessing the rise of new market leaders? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth coverage of industry changes that matter to you.